Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Shotarasata Shishimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Nam Acharya Srila Haridash Thakur Ki. Prem Se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Ghora Bhakta Vrinda. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jaya. All glories Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, Text 16. Pramanam Anda Koshasya Bhayabhyantara Vedataha Mahatam Chanucharitam Varnashrama Vinishchayaha Pramanam Andakoshasya Pramanam Andakoshasya Bhayabhyantara Vedataha Bhayabhyantara Vedataha Mahatam Chanucharitam Mahatam Chanucharitam Varnashrama Vinishchayaha Varnashrama Vinishchayaha Pramanam Andakoshasya Bhayabhyantara Vedataha Mahatam Chanucharitam Varnashrama Vinishchayaha Pramanam Andakoshasya Bhayabhyantara Vedataha Mahatam Chanucharitam Varnashrama Vinishchayaha. Please repeat. Pramanam Andakoshasya Bhayabhyantara Vedataha Chanucharitam Varnashrama Vinishchayaha Bhayabhyantara Vedataha Mahatam Chanucharitam Varnashrama Vinishchayaha Pramanam Andakoshasya Vedataha Chanucharitam Varnashrama Vinishchayaha Pramanam Andakoshasya Bhayabhyantara Vedataha Mahata, thank you. Charucharitam Varnashrama Vinishchayaha Pramanam Andakoshasya Bhayabhyantara Vedataha Mahatam Chanucharitam Varnashrama Vinishchayaha Pramanam Andakoshasya Bhayabhyantara Vedataha Mahatam Chanucharitam Varnashrama Vinishchayaha. Mataji's Pramanam Andakoshasya Bhayabhyantara Vedataha Mahatam Chanucharitam Varnashrama Vinishchayaha. Pramanam, extent and measurement. Andakoshasya, of the universe. Bhaya, outer space. Abhyantara, inner space. Vedataha, by division. Mahatam, of the great souls. Cha, also. Jai Prabhupada. Translation. Also, please describe the inner and outer space of the universe by specific divisions, as well as the character and activities of great souls, and also the characteristics of the different classifications of the castes and orders of social life. Purport. Maharaj Parikshit is a typical devotee of the Lord, and as such, he is anxious to know the complete significance of the creation of the Lord. He wants to know the inner and outer space of the universal form. It is quite fitting for the real searcher of knowledge to know all about this. Those who are of the opinion that devotees of the Lord are satisfied with mere sentiments can find in the inquiries of Maharaj Parikshit good lessons as to how inquisitive a pure devotee is to know things in their true perfection. The modern scientist is unable to know about the inner space of the universal horizon, and what to speak of the space which covers the universe. Maharaj Parikshit is not satisfied with only material knowledge. He is inquisitive about the character and activities of the great souls, the devotees of the Lord. The glories of the Lord and the glories of his devotees combined together comprise the complete knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Krishna showed his mother the complete universal creation within his mouth, while she, completely charmed by her son, wanted to look inside the mouth of the Lord just to see how much earth the child had eaten. By the grace of the Lord, the devotees are able to see everything in the universe within the mouth of the Lord. The very idea of scientific divisions of 4 classes of human society and 4 orders of life is also inquired about herewith on the basis of individual personal quality. The 4 divisions are exactly like the 4 divisions of one's personal body. The parts and parcels of the body are non-different from the body, but they themselves are only parts. That is the significance of the whole scientific system of 4 castes and 4 social orders. The value of such scientific divisions of human society can be ascertained only in terms of the proportionate development of devotional service to the Lord. Any person employed in government service, including the president, is a part and parcel of the entire government. Everyone is a government servant, but no one is the government himself. That is the position of all living entities in the government of the Supreme Lord. No one can artificially claim the supreme position of the Lord, but everyone is meant to serve the purpose of the Supreme Whole. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Ataf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamshcha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamsha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanshakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtatya Reshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Pramana Mandakoshasya Bhayabhyantara Bedataha Mahatam Chanu Charitam Vanashrama Vinishchayaha. Also, please describe the inner and outer space of the universe by specific divisions, as well as the character and activities of the great souls, and also the characteristics of the different classifications of the castes and orders of social life. We have been reading from this second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, titled The Cosmic Manifestation, and in which we have been discussing different parts and manifestations of the universe in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, which is also asked in this translation here, asking about the inner and outer space of the universe. And the specific chapter that we have here is questions by King Parikshit. So Parikshit Maharaj is asking Shukadeva Goswami various questions, and it's actually a lot of questions. If you look through the whole chapter and the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit is asking so many questions. And as such, the next chapter is entitled Answers. But not just answers, it's answers by citing the Lord's version. So Shukadeva Goswami will be answering Maharaj Parikshit's questions, but not based off of his own mental speculation or his own beliefs, his own thoughts, but citing from the Lord's version, which is coming from the Shastra. And Chandanacharya Prabhu briefly spoke on this in his class a couple days ago, talking about the system of questions and answers which we see through the whole Bhagavatam, the whole Bhagavad Gita, and all these really important scriptures. There are these system of questions and answers. And like I said, these questions and answers have to be established on the basis of the Shastra. Because we are conditioned souls. We don't really have proper senses. We can't perceive things properly. So any knowledge that we have to get it from the Shastra. Otherwise, we'll just be left to mental speculation. We'll create any philosophy that we want based on what gratifies our senses. I was actually thinking about a recent experience that me and Nick had at this convention that we just went to over the weekend. We were at this, multi-city, multi-con convention outside of Nashville. And, you meet so many people at these conventions, but one of the people that we met was some Mataji, and she was dressed like a Jedi, and we were also in our Jedi costumes, so we did like the whole thing. But she was like, no, this isn't a costume. This is who I really am. And she really thought that she was part of this fictional, scientific Jedi society. And just off of the basis, like she was like explaining a little bit to us, and basically she had an idea that she wanted to help people and do good for the world, but she didn't want to follow any particular path. So they, based on the fictional realm of this Star Wars, they take whatever teachings that they like from that and base a whole philosophy off of that and just live off of that. But really, it's not to really do any actual good for people, because they're only seeing things just on the basis of this life and off of this body. They aren't really doing anything to help the soul. They might, give some food to people that are hungry, some mental health counseling and help to people that might be having troubles, some counseling to some people in need. But all these are really just decorations on a dead body if we don't actually educate them on who we actually are, what is the purpose of life, and how we can attain the supreme spiritual world and get that association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So really, all her whole philosophy is just useless. But she obviously didn't think that way, and even when we presented her the real thing in Prabhupada's book, she was like, that's like okay to have that understanding, but what I'm doing is like far past that understanding, and they have ideas like this. So in the translation here, Prabhupada talks about there's three main points that are mentioned here in the translation, and Prabhupada goes into depth in the purports here. It's the inner and outer space of the universe, different personalities, devotees of the Lord and their qualities, and then the system of Varnashram Dharma. So first of all, it's describing Maharaj Parikshit here in that he is anxious to know the complete significance of the creation of the Lord. And this is really important because in order to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead and in his personal features and in his intimate pastimes, which are later on discussed later in the Bhagavatam, we have to first understand this significance of the creation. Because if we don't understand who God is and who Krishna is and how he's present everywhere and how he's created this whole universe, we'll misunderstand and put our own conceptions on to what is described later in the Bhagavatam. So it's described in this way that you have to start at the feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and gradually as you read and you gain understanding, you'll make your way up to the head. And in this premature stage, it is sometimes found that like a lusty person will artificially try to establish some relationship with Krishna in conjugal love. And the result of this is that one becomes a prakrita sahajya, or one who takes something very cheaply. So they'll read through the intimate pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and see them and see him as being exactly like them and having material desires and lusty desires, and think that, oh, I can also immediately jump to enjoying with Krishna like that, and I can also have desires like this. But this is not actually true, so which is why we have to understand what is spoken before. And it isn't just that because Maharaj Parikshit is a great devotee, he just automatically asks Shukadeva Goswami, okay, tell me about the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan and the Rasa Leela. First he asks him about this creation, and that's what this whole canto is actually about. And so we have to understand it in this way. And I was actually thinking in this regard because I'm going through and I'm reading the Bhagavatam, and I'm like so much of this is just going over my head. You know, like, how can I even say that when I get to the 10th canto I'll be ready to read any of it, or even later on in the cantos, like, how can I even like begin to understand any of it if where I'm at now I'm just like, oh my God, like half of what I'm reading is just going over my head. And kind of the understanding that I've come to is that by doing this I can at least understand that Krishna is very hard to understand, and that just based off of reading this Bhagavatam once and based on my own knowledge of where I'm currently at in my Krishna consciousness, I definitely won't be able to understand barely anything. So as long as I'm able to understand that Krishna is very difficult to understand, then maybe I can get some realization by reading further. So this inquiry by Maharaj Parikshit about the creation and about the inner and outer space of the universe. I don't really know so much on this topic, but there's a couple verses from the Bhagavad Gita in which Krishna kind of describes his position in regards to this creation. In the 9th chapter, he says that I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the dearmost friend. I am the creation and annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed. So from this we can see that everything is resting on Krishna's energy. Therefore, without the shelter of Krishna, nothing can exist. And that Krishna is the supreme ruler because everything belongs to him and everything exists within his energy. So everything belongs to Krishna, and Krishna is in charge of everything within this creation. Then later on in the 10th chapter of this Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that of all creations, I am the beginning and the end, and also the middle, O Arjuna. Of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self, and among logicians, I am the conclusive truth. So Krishna is involved in all the concepts and all the parts of the universe, its creation, its maintenance, and its annihilation at the end. There might be different personalities in charge of these different facilities, like we see Brahma as the creator and Shiva as the one in charge of the annihilation. But as we just read early on in this canto, when Narada Muni questions Lord Brahma and says, you know, it seems like you're doing all this creation very, very well, and you have so much power, but Brahma tells him that no, actually, I'm any power that I have, I'm getting it from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in this way, Krishna is in charge of everything, and he describes this as everything is resting upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So, Chandan, you were giving that class, right? No, it was Matsya Prabhu. Matsya Prabhu was giving this class, and he was talking about how when you have this string of pearls, it just looks like it's just pearls, and they might just be floating in air if you don't have any conception of what a necklace is or never seen one before. But one who actually knows that there's a string behind the pearls. So similarly, if we are able to see, in the beginning stage, Krishna might appear to be hidden to us, but one who has the actual vision and can see through the eyes of the Shastra and through the system of Parampara is able to see the Supreme Lord's involvement in everything. So in this way, the more we surrender, the more is revealed to us. It's said that if we leave everything in God's hands, we're able to see God's hand in everything. And this surrender and this ability to see is given through us through the association of devotees. The next point that Prabhupada hits on in this purport is how these inquiries of Maharaj Parikshit, that those who are of the opinion that devotees of the Lord are satisfied with mere sentiments, can find the inquiries of Maharaj Parikshit good lessons as to how inquisitive a pure devotee is to know things in their true perfection. So, similarly to what Chandanacharya Prabhu touched on, that devotees of the Lord, they don't just ask ordinary questions, and they don't just ask these questions to any ordinary person. Their questions are specifically in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they're on not ordinary topics that just anyone can just wake up and dream up in their sleep, right? Like even in this translation here, asking about the different classifications of the castes and orders of social life, that must have some background understanding of Varnashram Dharma overall, the inner and outer spaces of the universe, knowing that there is an inner and an outer, an internal and an external energy, knowing that it's divided in specific divisions, and also understanding and respecting the great personalities and inquiring about them. And these aren't just asked to anybody. Like, you don't just go up to like a kindergarten teacher and ask them about concepts about physics, right? They would probably tell you, oh, I just deal with like finger painting and drawing with like crayons. Like I don't really, and like alphabet, I don't really like mess with E equals MC squared. But Maharaj Parikshit is asking from Shukadeva Goswami because he knows. And because he has heard from Vyasadeva, it isn't just because, Shukadeva Goswami just made this up, but he heard it from Vyasadeva. And it also isn't that Maharaj Parikshit is just asking these questions for his own personal inquiry. We understand that Maharaj Parikshit is a pure devotee of the Lord. And he's actually asking these questions. It is also there that he is, he only has 7 days left to live, and he's inquiring what one should do around the time of death. But he's also asking these questions for the benefit of people in general. And we also see this in the Bhagavad Gita, because someone who doesn't have the proper understanding might think that, Arjuna is just another conditioned soul like you or I, and he's asking Krishna these questions because he doesn't know, and he seems to be bewildered on the battlefield and asking questions about, what about the degrading of the families and irreligious principles, and then Varna Sankara, and then all these other stuff that happen. You might think that, Arjuna is being very bewildered and he's conditioned just like me. But actually we understand that Arjuna is a pure devotee, and he's wherever Krishna goes and has his pastimes, Arjuna is there with him. And he's actually asking these questions for the benefit of the people, so we can actually also have a taste and relish these pastimes and the these pastimes of Krishna and the association of devotees. And with this knowledge, we're actually able to understand Krishna. And it isn't just that how it's described here, that devotees like Maharaj Parikshit are satisfied with the mere sentiments. And the part of the Bhagavatam that I'm reading now, the third canto, it's this similar setting where it's in the third canto where Vidura is inquiring from Maitreya Muni. And in one of the purports Prabhupada describes in relation to Vidura asking questions to Maitreya that because there were insufficient topics directly concerning Krishna in the Puranas, Mahabharata, etc., he was not satisfied and wanted to know more about Krishna. Krishna Katha, or topics regarding Krishna, are transcendental, and there is no satiation in hearing such topics. Bhagavad Gita is important on the account of its being Krishna Katha, or speeches delivered by Lord Krishna. The story of the battle of Kurukshetra might be interesting for the mass of people, but to a person like Vidura, who is a highly advanced devotee, only Krishna Katha and that which is dovetailed with Krishna Katha is interesting. Vidura wanted to hear everything from Maitreya, and so he inquired from him. But he desired that all topics be in relation with Krishna. As fire is never satisfied in the consumption of firewood, so a pure devotee of the Lord never hears enough about Krishna. So this is similar in the case of Maharaj Parikshit here, that he isn't just satisfied with mere sentiments and stories that one might find in the Puranas or the Mahabharata, but he really wants to understand and inquire about Krishna and hear Krishna Katha from Maharaj Parikshit, from Shukadeva Goswami. And that's the nature of all of his questions. The basis of all of his questions is to try and develop a deeper understanding of Krishna. And this first has to be done by hearing, and one has to be submissive. And what is this submissive mindset? It's actually an item of knowledge. And the first step in knowledge is that we have to be submissive to hear from someone. I was briefly just in Alachua, and one of my friends, I met him at Mangalarti, and he was describing to me about how when different people try to learn instruments, like the mridanga, for example, and you already have some understanding, or you want to get better, but you don't really want to submit to someone and learn. Like they say, oh, why are you teaching me like this? Like someone else is teaching me like this. Like, why don't you teach me that? And it's like, dude, you asked me to learn from you. Like, why are you now telling me how to teach you? So in this way, the humility has to be there so we can actually learn. Otherwise, we'll just think that we already know everything, and we might waste so much time hearing, and we might waste so much money thinking that we want to learn from someone, but actually we'll leave not learning anything. Next point in the purport that Prabhupada kind of hits on is about how the modern scientist is unable to know the inner space of the universal horizon, what to speak of the space which covers the universe. So scientists, they try and see everything based on their own senses and their own perception. And we can see the difference in the questions that the scientists ask versus the questions that are posed by Maharaj Parikshit. Basically, how the whole scientific world works is that they see a certain phenomenon, and then they ask, okay, how can I question more so I can measure this phenomenon? Like they ask, okay, death is there, but how can we measure death? And they create so many different instruments to, measure the function of the heart and the brain waves and different physical and mental states that people enter at the time of death. And they understand that the universe is there, and they're like, okay, how can I measure how far the earth is away from the sun, and how can I measure all these different things? But if we see the questions of Maharaj Parikshit, he asks, okay, the universe is there and it exists, but how does it relate to Krishna? And he understands that, okay, death is there, but what happens after death? And what should one do when approaching the time of death? So this is the difference, Scientists think they're so smart because they're like, wow, I've realized that death exists. But really everybody, if you just use like a little bit of your intelligence, you can see that everything around you is born, it grows, it gets old, and then eventually it dies. So now by their hundreds and hundreds of years of scientific research, now they can die really scientifically. We can explain to you exactly how you have died. I used to work in the hospital and had different clinical rotations in the hospital before my nursing school, and there was one night where I was shadowing in an intensive care unit, and I had one of my patients actually die for some time, like his heart stopped and his brain stopped, and everyone was like freaking out. And then eventually, by some machines and injections, he was able to start breathing again. And then he was like unable to speak or do anything for the next couple of days. But once he finally came to consciousness, all of the doctors came in and were like explaining to him, yes, this is like exactly what had happened as you for momentarily had died, right? But for all the purposes of their medicine and all this, they couldn't prevent what had happened from happening, but they were just able to nicely describe to him, see, like if you look at this heart wave here, like it went flat here, and then if you look at the brain waves, and we like did this whole metabolic panel where your liver enzymes are off and all this, but they aren't able to save people from the real problems of life, which is ultimately death. So all they're doing is just wasting their time. And instead of trying to advance in this so-called science, we should understand what is really science. Science means to understand, who am I? What is the universe? What is my relationship with the universe, and what happens after death? And actually relating these processes with Krishna and inquiring from a person who actually knows. The next main point covered is devotees of the Lord and their qualities and their glories. And it's an important point that Prabhupada makes here, that the glories of the Lord and the glories of his devotees combined comprise this complete knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Because if you go through and you read the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, it really describes and glorifies so many devotees of the Lord. Obviously there's so many people can name, but does anyone want to name any specific devotees that are glorified that really come to their mind that they can recall? Prahlad Maharaj, yeah. Thank you very much. Dhruva Maharaj. Anyone else? Prithu, yeah. Ambarish Maharaj, Bhishma, Narada, Vidura, Uddhava. Like, you could just probably give like a whole Bhagavatam class just like listing devotees that have been glorified throughout this Srimad Bhagavatam. And why are these devotees glorified in the Srimad Bhagavatam? Because Krishna likes it that his devotees are glorified. Krishna likes that his devotees are glorified more than the fact that he is glorified, right? And we can see this as an example practically, first of all, in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Krishna tells Arjuna that, therefore, get up, prepare to fight and win in glory, conquer your enemies and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Savyasachi, can be an instrument in the fight. So Krishna is describing here how basically he has already arranged everything that's happening on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Everything that is about to happen is according to his arrangement, and he's already arranged for it to happen. But one might ask, why doesn't Krishna just do it himself then? Right? Krishna had the power. He could have just given the kingdom back to the Pandavas. Wouldn't have to be any war, and it would have just been over like that. But through this battlefield of Kurukshetra and through the speaking of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was able to be glorified so much. And Arjuna was able to perform so many activities in which now we can relish these pastimes and activities of Arjuna. So, so we can see that if one is in full Krishna consciousness and his life is devoted to the Lord in transcendental service, then he is perfect. And it isn't only Arjuna that we can see an example of like this, but also Srila Prabhupada, right? In Prabhupada's poem, song that he was writing when he was coming to America, he said, "O Lord, I'm just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, make me dance. O Lord, make me dance as you like." So we've had so many great personalities and acharyas in our movement, and we can see by their example and by Prabhupada's example that they were simply just acting at the will and of the mercy of Krishna. They have the understanding similar to the understanding that Arjuna got in the Bhagavad Gita, that everything has actually already been arranged by Krishna. I just simply have to act as his instrument. So by being fully dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then you can really have the mindset and really pray like this, that, "Oh Lord, just make me dance, make me dance, make me dance." It's similar to these prayers of Queen Kunti. We see that Queen Kunti prays so many high things, like she prays for suffering. Like who can actually pray like this? Like I mean, anybody can say like, "Oh yeah, Krishna, please give me suffering," but then on the side they might be like, "Yeah, but not like so much, like maybe just like a little bit." Similarly, we might say like, "Oh Lord, make me dance, make me dance, make me dance," but we might not actually develop that mood. And in order to do this, Prabhupada talks about later, he says, "I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I simply have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I've been designated as Bhaktivedanta. Now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhaktivedanta." So similarly, we can develop a particular mood like this simply by having strong faith in the holy name. That's the only requirement, just having strong faith in the holy name of the Lord. Then we can really be and act as an instrument of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we are next point in this purport here that Prabhupada makes is that it's this in relation to the universal creation and how the devotees of the Lord are glorified, that Lord Krishna showed his mother the complete universal creation within his mouth, while she, completely charmed by her son, wanted to take a look inside the mouth of the Lord just to see how much earth the child had eaten. So I would just like to read briefly some of this part from the Krishna book in the 8th chapter about this pastime. I mean, all of us have probably heard about this pastime, but it's nice to hear these pastimes over and over and over again, right? That's like one of the main parts of the Srimad Bhagavatam is you might see different personalities asking similar questions, but the whole point is that these questions and these topics, the more you hear about them, actually, the more relishable they become. So yeah, I can start reading. Another day, when Krishna and Balaram were playing with their friends, all the boys joined Balaram and complained to Mother Yashoda that Krishna had eaten clay. On hearing this, Mother Yashoda caught hold of Krishna's hand and said, "My dear Krishna, why have you eaten earth in a solitary place? Just see, all of your friends, including Balaram, are complaining about you." Being afraid of his mother, Krishna replied, My dear mother, all these boys, including my elder brother, Balaram, are speaking lies against me. I have never eaten any clay. My elder brother, Balaram, while playing with me today, became angry and therefore has joined with the other boys to complain against me. They have all combined together to complain to you, so you will be angry and chastise me. If you think they are truthful, then you can look within my mouth and see whether I have eaten clay or not. His mother replied, "All right, if you have not actually eaten any clay, then just open your mouth and I shall see." When the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna was ordered by his mother, he immediately opened his mouth just like an ordinary boy. Then Mother Yashoda saw within the mouth the complete opulence of creation. She saw the entire outer space in all directions, mountains, islands, oceans, seas, planets, air, fire, moon, and stars. Along with the moon and stars, she also saw all the elements, water, sky, and extensive ethereal existence, along with the total ego and its products, namely the senses, the controllers of the senses, all of the demigods, and all the objects of the senses like sound and smell. Within his mouth, she also saw the three qualities of material nature, all living entities, eternal time, material nature, spiritual nature, activity, consciousness, and different forms of the whole creation. Yashoda could find within the mouth of her child everything necessary for the cosmic manifestation. She also saw within his mouth herself taking Krishna on his lap, and having him suck her breast. Upon seeing this, she became struck with awe and began to wonder whether she were dreaming or actually seeing something extraordinary. She concluded that she was either dreaming or seeing the play of the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although she thought she had become mad, mentally deranged to see all those wonderful things. Then she thought, it may be cosmic mystic power attained by my child, and therefore I am perplexed by such visions within his mouth. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the expression of consciousness, mind, work, and philosophical speculation, and whose different energies produce everything manifested and unmanifested. Under his energy, bodily self and bodily possessions are conceived. She then said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, under whose illusory energy I am thinking that Nanda Maharaj is my husband and Krishna is my son, that all the properties of Nanda Maharaj belong to me, and that the cowherd men and women are all my subjects. All this misconception due to the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord. So let me pray to him that he may protect me always." While Mother Yashoda was thinking in this high philosophical way, Lord Krishna again expanded his internal energy just to bewilder her with maternal affection. Immediately, Mother Yashoda forgot all philosophical speculation and accepted Krishna as her own child. She took him on her lap and became overwhelmed with maternal affection. She thus began to think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is understood through the process of cultivating knowledge derived from the Upanishads and the Vedanta Sutra, practicing mystic yoga, and studying Sankhya philosophy as her own begotten child. So here we see Mother Yashoda seeing the entire cosmic manifestation within Krishna's mouth, and then praying to Krishna, like, "Oh my God, like what's like going on? And began to speculate in this philosophical way, and then Krishna brings her back under his internal energy, and then she's able to have that relationship with him again, and then she's completely pacified. Yeah, that is a really nice pastime, and since it was mentioned here in the purport, I thought I'd read it for the pleasure of Krishna and for the pleasure of the devotees. So the last big point talked about here in this purport is this division of the four classes and four orders of human society, or Varnashram Dharma. And it's described that the four divisions are exactly like the four divisions of one's personal body. And we can see that in this system of Varnashram Dharma, the Brahmanas are described as the heads of society, the intellectual class, the Kshatriyas, or the administrators, They represent the body, the Vaishyas, the arms, they're the workers and the mercantile class. And then finally, the Shudras, or the laborers, represent the legs. And one might ask, what is the use of this system of social life and this Varnashram Dharma? And it's described by Srila Prabhupada in different ways, in different various purports. It says that the system of 4 varnas and 4 ashrams, which prescribes material and spiritual duties, are for the different members of society. The Varnashram Dharma is meant for imperfect, conditioned souls. The Varnashram Dharma enables human society to become perfectly fit for getting out of the clutches of Maya, and by following regular principles of Varnashram Dharma, one can become successful. This is the best system of how to act in the material world, because it allows one the opportunity to engage in Krishna consciousness. So from an external perspective, one might just look at the Varnashram system and think it just to be another material thing. And in one way, it is a material designation based on whatever situation one's in and whatever body one happens to have. But we can see that the purpose of it is actually to get out of the clutches of Maya. And the system that's presented in in Varnashram Dharma, it helps us to realize Krishna. It doesn't just keep us on this platform of, I am this body and everything belonging to this body is mine, this aham mameti understanding. But it actually allows us to live a life which is fully dedicated to Krishna, like we hear this phrase, this simple living and higher thinking. And this is really the essence of Varnashram, and by having these farms, these farm projects, these farm communities, we can actually truly live by and establish these principles of Varnashram Dharma. Because by simply living on the farm, one doesn't have to worry about accumulating so many possessions and having so many facilities and worrying about so many material things such as bills and rent and insurance and all these other things. One just has to worry about whatever duty they have in the society, whether they take care of the cows, they build things, they build houses, they build different structures, they take care of the land, they might cook, they might have someone who makes different medicines, like we see Abhimanyu Sutta Prabhu's grandfather, he makes these herbs. And in a whole Varnashram system, you can have your whole society constructed in which each person kind of has a specific duty and a specific function in which they kind of just have to worry about that for the sustenance of their material body. And the rest of their entire day and the rest of their entire life, they can just focus on reading and chanting and hearing and really understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Which is why if we look at the current material society and you really analyze it, like living in the city and living in these current situations that most devotees find themselves in, it's really easy for sense gratification and really, really hard for practicing Krishna consciousness, right? The modern consumer society makes it so easy for instant gratification to be right at your fingertips. Everything's on the phone, there's a store which sells this and that at every corner. We import so many goods, so if you go to the store, basically nothing's locally grown or grown according to the different climate or the environment, but based on your taste, you can pick pretty much whatever fruit you like and gratify your senses in that way. And people have to work so hard and so many long hours just to have this facility of sense gratification. And by doing this, there's very little time left to actually practice Krishna consciousness. And you see so many householder devotees, like, again, using Alatra as an example, because I was just there. Devotees and the parents and the families that live in this community, we have to work so hard and arrange so many different things just to keep the body together. Basically, one has to work so hard in the material world, and at the end of the day, it's like, oh my God, I didn't have time to chant, I didn't have time to read, and I was barely able to think about Krishna throughout the whole day. I mean, it's also there that no matter what situation one's in, he can utilize it in Krishna service just by thinking that, I have this house and I'm using it as a temple for Krishna, and I'm raising these children and I'm raising them in Krishna consciousness. But the whole point is that this varnashram system makes it so easy to practice spiritual life, and in another way, so hard to practice material life. Everything isn't right at your fingertips. Like, you can't just if you live on a farm, you can't just walk over to the store and be like, yeah, I would like 4 mangoes and a couple papayas, some fruit. No, you actually have to learn how to work the land, and you have to train the oxen in order to plow the field. And then you have to do so much work to till the field and water it and different fertilizers. And then you have to pray that the weather is going to be right and that there isn't like a freeze which kills all your entire crop and then it's finished. So it's so much work just for one, my mom, for example, she has different beehives and she grows different fruit trees and different vegetables. And if you actually look at how much work it goes into growing your own food and having your own bees and really trying to grow stuff off of your own land, it's a lot of effort. Like if people actually had to get their own honey from a beehive, barely anybody would ever eat honey because you have to deal with the bees and you could get stung. And even actually when you take the comb out of the hive, you still have to extract the honey from the comb. And I don't even know how they did it back in the day, but nowadays you can buy this barrel and you have to turn this handle for 10 minutes and then gradually the honey spins out. I can't even imagine what they would do before all these nice modern luxuries. But even that, it's hard work. You have to stand there for hours and hours, just
Squeeze the honey out. That's one way to do it.
Yeah. So it's so much work and so much effort just for a small jar of honey. But one can live according to this varnashram system, and we see so many people living nowadays. They're attracted to living off of the land and living off the grid, and they might be doing similar things that devotees are doing, or trying to do in the case of the Western world, because we don't really have so many farm communities established. But what is the difference between what they're doing and what we're trying to do is that everything that we're doing is in relationship with Krishna. So in the similar way that all of Maharaj Parikshit's questions here are, they might seem like, oh, he's asking about the universe and all these other things. But really the essence of it is that it's all in relationship with Krishna. Similarly, devotees living on these varnashram farm communities, they might be collecting honey, they might be tilling the land and making fruits, they might be protecting cows and getting milk. But they aren't doing it with the mindset of, oh, I like honey so much and I like milk so much, so I'm keeping cows so I can get the milk and I can enjoy it very, very nicely. But rather they see everything as, okay, Krishna has given me this nice facility and now I'm able to use all of these things in Krishna's service. And in this way, one can live one's entire life and every aspect of one's day can be completely engaged in devotional service. And that is really this purpose of Varnashram Dharma. And that's why we have to establish this Varnashram Dharma, this systems of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, Brahmacharis, Grihastas, Vanaprasthas, and sannyasis. And it isn't this caste system. One of our last class, I spoke about how brahmanas have to be completely impartial and just see things for the benefit of society. But then eventually it was thought like, I could just do things for my own benefit. And then everything was based on birth, and then you couldn't go between different parts of the system. But what our acharyas and what is specifically referenced is this Daiva Varnashram. It's this Varnashram system not based on birthright, because we understand that Janmana Jayate Shudra, that by birth everybody's a Shudra. And just by birth, one doesn't have any qualifications. Like Prabhupada would always use this example that just because someone is born the son of a lawyer doesn't make them a lawyer automatically. If they want to become a lawyer, what do they have to do? Oh my God, our Bhakta Nick knows all about that. But you have to go through so many, you have to study so many things, and if you want to switch states, you have to learn the law that's specific to that state. And it's so much work that actually has to go in. And similarly, if you want to be a brahmana, you can't just be like, well, my dad was a brahmana, so I'm a brahmana, and just not study any of the scriptures and learn any of the processes. But it takes so much work and so much effort just to get to that level. And by this system, we can gradually cultivate whatever propensities, like Mahotsa Prabhu was speaking about how based on someone's situation, they're born with a specific guna and karma. So based on that, and based on whatever situations they've acquired from their previous life and whatever situation they find themselves in, we can use that situation and we can dovetail their propensities in Krishna consciousness, so eventually they can come up to the level of being a Vaishnava. And that's truly the purpose of this Varnashram system. It isn't to say oh, you're a Brahmana, you're a Kshatriya, but see, okay, what is this person's propensity, and how can they be quickly and easily and properly brought up to be a Vaishnava? So the last point that Prabhupada makes here, and then I'll end the class, is that everybody is a government servant, but no one is the government himself. That is a position of all entities in the government of the Supreme Lord. So we're all servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and servant means you should know how to serve. And we can see that the best way to serve Krishna and to receive the mercy of Lord Chaitanya in this age of Kali is through this Sankirtan movement, is by this book distribution. And with the marathon coming up and today being Maha Saturday, I thought I'd read a letter of Srila Prabhupada to Sudama. It's just a short letter. But I was listening to a class by His Holiness Bhakti Vikash Maharaj, and he was referencing this letter and kind of gave me a jolt of inspiration after reading it. So I just thought I'd read it really quickly. This is on the 25th of November, 1972. Prabhupada says, "My dear Sudama, please accept my blessings. I beg to acknowledge receipt of your letter dated November 14th, 1972, and I have noted the contents with care. Yes, we shall base our preaching work on Lord Chaitanya's formula, Sankirtan. After all, he is God, and if he recommends, what is the question of failure? That is not possible. If we simply stick to this program, as it has been done since the beginning, namely kirtan, preaching, Sankirtan, prasadam distribution, if you do like this, only that will be sufficient. Of course, you may make the kirtan as nice as possible with dancing, kartals, conches, and if you preach sincerely, anyone who listens will become convinced. The potency of the Krishna consciousness movement does not come from some outward show. No, it is the transcendental sound vibration of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and the words of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, like that. Now go on and develop things in this spirit. That will be nice. We are not interested to attract millions of men to see some show. Better we attract one sincere soul to join us in ecstatically chanting and hearing. That will be of real value. And distribute books, as many as possible. If anyone hears some philosophy from us, that will help him. but if he purchases one book, that may turn his life. So selling books is the best preaching activity. Sell books, hold kirtan in public places like schools and colleges, preach. If you do these things and try to improve them more and more by simply preaching sincerely, that simple program will please Krishna the most, and you will see the result very soon. So I'll end my class here. If there are any questions, comments, corrections, we can take those now.
Here, Srila Prabhupada, it's interesting how he takes the varnashram system and then says how the living entities are not Supreme Lord, they're parts of the Supreme Lord, and he establishes that point based on the fact that the varnashram system, the living entities are positioned in different parts of the varnashram system, but the varnashram system is just a part of the whole system. Each varna, each ashram is part of the whole system, not the whole system in itself. It's amazing how those who are determined to think that everything is one, they will use such statements, and not this statement that Srila Prabhupada is making, but statements in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna, especially the universal form, the opulences of the Absolute. And so Krishna says, I am among this and that,
Like the fire of
I'm a fire of digestion, and I'm this, I'm among elephants, I'm, what is that, King Indra's elephant? Airavata. Airavata, and like this. Among the Apsaras, I'm so and so, and like this, So they take it all, and recently I heard one person tell me, oh, you see, even Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita that he is Skanda. So it's like, so it's all one. I'm like, yeah, right. It's what you want to believe, fine. It's like you can't change their opinion on these things, and so I find it very interesting. Prabhupada saying how he's using the varnashram system to establish that, because by using the varnashram system, one can clearly understand that it's part of something else. It's part of a bigger system. Mm-hmm. And so Prabhupada is drawing the same analogy for the living entities to the Supreme Lord.
Yeah, thank you for that point. Yeah, it's very important that we take these quotes and anything that might be like misunderstood and are able to see like the whole picture. Like if you might find like one quote here or there, but if you actually look at the whole Bhagavad Gita and apply that same understanding, it actually won't make any sense at all. So yeah, thank you. Chandra?
I was just thinking, like, some of these questions that Maharaj Parikshit is going through, like the amount of detail that Srimad Bhagavatam gives in terms of God consciousness, the nature of God, who God is. It's really like, it's unimaginable for people. Just like I'm having this experience with Mason that's coming around. It's just like, he was stumped. Like he heard a class and he was just like, oh my God, I don't know anything. He was completely stumped about the depth of knowledge that is available in these books. So it's like made for an intellectual class who are sincere, like you're saying that, who are submissive to hear. Prabhupada specifically gives the qualification of the ability to understand to this hearing aspect, and it says one should be eager to hear and one should be submissive. Those are the two qualifications of someone who can take up devotional service. So those who are intelligent, eager to hear, and are submissive, they can start to understand the value of the knowledge and start to appreciate, oh wow, there's a lot here. So it's just very interesting, like all the questions that Maharaj Parikshit goes through, how detail, like the amount of detail that the Srimad Bhagavatam is providing of the Krishna consciousness in general is amazing. It's really deep.
Yeah, thank you. That's like a really good point. And we can we can see that it isn't just like, like you were saying how there's so many like complicated things, but it isn't that like having like a big brain or like a lot of intellect is like the qualification. It's like you were saying, by only hearing and being willing to hear, that's like the qualification. Like there's that story of Narada Muni and the Brahmana, and is it like the shoemaker or something where like Narada Muni goes to the Brahmana who like knows all like the shlokas, and then he like goes to the other person, and it's like all this with like, oh, like what was Vishnu doing when you visited him in Vaikuntha, and the Brahmana with all the high understanding wasn't able to believe that he was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle, but the simple man had actually understood the purport of all the shastras that the Brahmana had read, whereas the Brahmana had wasted his whole life because he hadn't understood that the Supreme Lord could do anything he likes.
I've been, in this, you were referring to farm communities, so in that regard, I've been researching into different, intentional communities and things like that, and I was reading a bunch about the Amish or the Mennonites, yesterday, and I came across this article on the, Kalki Prabhu had informed me that there were Amish and Mennonites in Central America, and
Really?
so I started looking them up. Well, they weren't, they're Amish, they're Mennonites. And then I was reading about them, and of course, these Mennonites live in Belize. They still speak German.
Really?
And there's two types of them. There's one which is the conservative and the other the liberal. The liberal class, they use vehicles and they have they use electricity in their houses, and they don't mind working some jobs outside or something like that. And they play sports and things like that. And then you have the conservatives, and then the article was primarily about the conservatives and how they came to church and this and that. And it's frankly a bit scary the way that it's a very, very, very boring environment in many ways, because for instance, one of the rules is that nobody talks to each other in church. You don't talk. You come to church, you bow down, you hear the sermon, and men enter from one side, women enter from another side. Kids under 13 are not even allowed, and then even when people leave, you just quietly get into your horse buggy and you leave. That's it. You're not supposed to hang out and joke around in the church and things like that. And so the way the article was framed was as if it's, again, it's a biased article,
right,
against obviously what these people are doing. What made me wonder is that while they try to portray it as a cult, it's anything but a cult, because it's existed for 300 plus years. And how can you call that a cult? It's it's literally generations. Even though there's so much strict stuff and it's quite boring, there must be something that generation after generation hold on to. Even if it's a cultural, or social restriction. The reason I'm mentioning that is because there does seem to be some value in some lifestyle like that. Otherwise, why is it going on for 300 years? A modern society is not able to maintain anything for a considerable. There's so much change all the time. Generation to generation can't relate to each other.
Right.
It's so bad. But they consider this to be superior. I'm not saying that that's how you should go to church, but just making a point here that there seems to be some value in these, in a very what we could call for the lack of a better term, a conservative lifestyle, and a simple lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
The article literally says that the moment you step into the village, you feel like you've been transported back by 150 years. It's unbelievable, apparently. It's like, you literally feel like you walked back in time.
Yeah. That's a good point. Thank you for making that point. And yeah, I mean, I was even briefly speaking about how now we even have, excuse me, people in modern society who are, attracted to, like, even like things as like buying organic food and maybe like spending more time out in nature and just like living a simple life in general. So there's definitely some attraction there for this kind of lifestyle and living simply and not having to worry about all like the hustle and bustle of modern society. But like you were describing this community, it like sounds like really boring and really like suffering, like but with Krishna consciousness you get to live on the farm, but you also get the rich association of devotees, and you get to hear the Bhagavatam and talk about it with devotees, and you get to chant and dance and joke with your friends, and like just like thinking of the contrast of like how you were describing they go to church and then us like taking milk in the evening. It's like such like a stark contrast. Yeah, that was a good point. Krishna Keshwar Prabhu, you had something? Sorry, it took so long to get to you.
Sorry. It's long, but I have only 2 minutes. Mataji's also. This is regarding Varnashram, which you are mentioning in your class. And you said about Devi Varnashram. Devi Varnashram, like normal Varnashram system, which was prevalent in the Vedic culture. As far as our reading and hearing from Prabhupada and His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj and other devotees, is that both types of things, like as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, Guna Karma Vibhaga Saha, that is existing, and even through birth also was existing. Because if you see Mahabharata, everybody, whoever is the son, the king becomes the king, and Dronacharya's son becomes a Brahmana. Of course, he is not qualified, but both were existing. Guna Karma Vibhagasa also was existing. It's not that just directly anybody is accepted, and it is not that a person who is born in a family will accept something else. But as far as Devi Varnashram is concerned, it is not just Guna Karma Vibhagasa, it is based on the Sankirtan movement. This is the fourth revolution. I don't know whether, where I heard this. First we do books, give books to the people come, there is a temple being established, and they come to the temple, they hear from us, and they take Siksha and Diksha, and the next revolution is to get out of this, all sorts of modern everything, and then place them in the farm. So this is the fourth revolution, fourth wave. The first wave, second wave, third wave, and the fourth wave. The books, temples, initiation temples, and then finally get them out. So this is the fourth wave of this one. This Devi Varnashram is, as Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur in Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, many places, it is based on Sankirtan movement of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That means we can say modern context, that our Devi Varnashram is based on book distribution and Harinam and the temples. It is based on all these three, and then they come to the farms. Unless and until one understands all these things, okay, one may have, this is very nice, as Mason gets inspired. Many people gets inspired. But to become really dedicated, that requires lot of hearing, lot of purification, and then again, even by hearing for years and years, people are unable to get that conviction that yes, we can live on the farm without electricity, without machines, without anything. It's very, very difficult. It's in India, people are facing difficulty.
as those people. I also read those that I was not able to understand this one. In India, maybe 2-3 years back, I read about these people who are staying something like more than 150 years back. They were staying. There are many people like that. Even Islamic culture, there is a Druze community, whole community. They live on nature. They're not dependent on anything. So the point is that it depends on the Sankirtan movement of the Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Guna karma is there, but it's very difficult to understand what is this guna karma. We should have that type of intelligent devotees who can extract them, that guna, that pravritti. So it is based on Sankirtan, and over a period of time they can purify it, and that pravritti comes out. Or that inclination or instinctness to do according to Brahmana, Vaishya, Shudra and all those things. Hare Krishna. But generally, if you see farms in India, many want to become Brahmanas. And there is a big, I don't want to say open up so many things, it's a long thing. But everybody wants to become a Brahmana. Nobody wants to work on the field. Nobody wants to become a Shudra. They are coming from intellectual class. All these people, they have nice brains. They would have worked in software companies, and they come to the farms, and everybody wants to teach. Everybody wants to teach in a Gurukul, do something like want to do some astrology, like everything in a Brahminical culture. Nobody wants to. So there is, instead of becoming the Brahmana should be less, but in farms it is happening that Brahmanas are more, Shudras are very less. So they have to get donations from everywhere to take care of these Brahmanas. So it's understanding and practical difficulties. There's so many things. Maharaj has given more than 1300 to 1500 lectures just on Varnashram. Relating to it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
There are classes more than 4 hours on questions on how to establish Varnashram. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Thank you. That's a really important point to understand. Mataji's, any questions? Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.